at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Ric Serritella here for the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show on this Saturday, November 29th, 2025. It is rivalry week, and we're all riled up, fired up, buckled up, hunkered down, ready to break it down. That's what we do here each and every Saturday on the NFL Draft Watch Show. We'll be breaking it down for the bowl game season, the college football playoff previews. We are 145 days away from destination Pittsburgh. The 2026 NFL Draft is coming up fast. And log on to allaccessfootball.com. We've got our Black Friday sale extended 60% off. Biggest sale of the year. Get down on it. All of our insider content includes the 2026 NFL Draft Bible today only. And if you're tuned into the show and you order during the show, we'll throw in a free Value Picks book courtesy of Neil Stratton. So we got some bargains, we got some draft breakdowns, we got in-depth scouting reports. You can follow along at home. We had a double dose of the Draft Insider this week. Yesterday, we previewed the Friday night action, and my co-host and I will recap some of the standouts from yesterday. But today, we posted the game, simply known as the game. Michigan, Ohio State, a rivalry that dates back to 1897. Michigan up 62 wins to 53 losses and 6 ties, I believe, off the top of my head. We're freestyling here on this Saturday affair, but we're going to be here for the next hour of power or so to preview that Michigan-Ohio State game, talk about some of the draft risers. Of course, we are about 6 weeks away now from the underclassmen deadline, and when we return next week, we'll have Senior Bowl invites to discuss. Of course, the East-West Shrine Bowl has over 24 confirmed invitations already officially out there, and you can go over to our East-West Shrine Bowl tracker, get all that. But, hey, we got to start the show, and to do that, I am Ric Serritella, by the way, the founder of allaccessfootball.com, but you already knew that. And my co-host is a former scout with the Cleveland Browns, the St. Louis Rams. Of course, he began with the UCLA Bruins, who are in action against USC on this rivalry week, and one of the few men walking the planet that have scouted in the NFL, the CFL, the XFL. And he joins us here each and every Saturday. Of course, he is one of the mentors over at Sports Management Worldwide for the Football GM and Scouting course starting in 2 days. You can still sign up for that over at smww.com. Former member of CBS Today pregame studio show, and my co-host each and every Saturday here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. He is Russ Lande, the star of the show in a snowy field, Chicago. Professor Lande, how you doing today?
Well, firstly, I'm doing great, but I hate to start it off having to correct you. I think you mentioned Michigan, Ohio State. That's the second game. The game today is UCLA beating that other team in LA. That's the only game that matters today.
Yeah, and you know, our scout Ryan Paglia, who I believe took the football GM and scouting course, is on location for the USC-UCLA game for NFL Draft Bible. So he'll be scouting that and providing some insight and analysis on the Scout Notebook on Monday. And if we have a little bit of time at the end of the show, we'll mess around with some UCLA, USC. USC coming in as heavy favorites. I was surprised to see that. But let's
all
kick
Hollywood money paying off Vegas. I mean, we all know,
the Hollywood sign
program and University of Spoiled Children right across.
I think last time I was out there, I think they were still missing an O on the Hollywood sign out there.
Probably.
Oh, the glitz and the glamour. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella breaking it down, and we'll run through the Friday night lights. Russ, you know, the quarterback class is not shaping up, but it's interesting to see who's in, who's out, who's moving, who's shaking, and quite a few signal callers potentially in this year's draft were in action yesterday. We'll take it one game at a time. We had 6 ranked games in action, and we'll touch base on the Iowa-Nebraska game also yesterday. But let's start off with Indiana. This game was over at halftime. The Battle of Indiana against Purdue. 56-3 beatdown. I mean, Fernando Mendoza punched in his time card for a half day's work. Exactly. 8 for 15, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His younger brother, Alberto, the freshman quarterback, actually came in relief of Fernando Mendoza. But I think that at this juncture of his career, Mendoza obviously transferred over from Cal, started 1.5 seasons there, has done very well in this Indiana system where, Curtis Rourke ran it masterfully last season. Mendoza has taken it even to a whole nother level, but all signs indicate that Mendoza, I think, is going to declare for the upcoming 2026 NFL draft.
Yeah, that's everything I've heard too. I mean, because you have a guy like him, you maybe have the kid Simpson from Alabama. So I think if you're going to be in the discussion to be one of the first 2 or 3 quarterbacks drafted, I think you're making a mistake to not seriously consider. Um, could he obviously benefit with another year? Probably. But when you have that opportunity to potentially be a top 10 or 15 pick, you really got to consider how much money you're going to be passing up, risking coming back for injury. I think when you look at Mendoza, you're talking about an efficient kid. He's got a big arm. He can make all the throws. I think for him, it's going to be about, can he be the consistently good player that we've seen in some games this year? Or is he going to be the guy that at times was a little bit inconsistent this year? And that's really the big question, I think, when he gets to the NFL. But I think physically, there's no question. The tools are there. I just want to see every single throw, every single decision be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, and Indiana, one of the top-ranked teams who took care of business, and the Hoosiers now are positioned for a deep run in the college football playoff, which could only probably elevate his draft stock if he does well in the college football playoffs. God forbid Indiana wins the national championship, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Well, I mean, they're sitting pretty going to the Big Ten championship. He goes there, the spotlight's going to be on him. Indianapolis, if they win there over Ohio State or Michigan, all of a sudden, you're talking a team, they could be literally, by the end of today, if Michigan wins, Indiana could be the number 1 team in the country.
Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Considering back where they were 10, 15 years ago, it's truly amazing. And I do love Mendoza in terms of how much he's improved from Cal, where he's at, and the potential he's got. I'm excited for him. When's the last time you talked about an Indiana player in the top 10 in the draft?
Wow. Yeah. We'll have to go back. We'll have to get our statistician on that one.
Exactly. It's been a while.
All right. Well, there was another quarterback in action yesterday who pulled off quite a big upset. And of course, Arch Manning had 6 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against Arkansas. First player in school history to pass, run, and catch a touchdown all in the same game. Statistically speaking, not his best game, but when it counted, Manning delivered, especially in the second half. 14 to 29, 179 yards, 1 passing through the air, another rushing touchdown, at 53 rushing yards, 0 interceptions, a nice clean ball game there. And quite honestly, you could have stated a case coming into this matchup that Marcel Reed, the Texas A&M redshirt sophomore, has been the best SEC quarterback. But in this game, Manning throws a big monkey wrench into that college football playoff equation, and Mike Elko, fresh off that extension now, loses the big game once again, which always seems to come back and haunt him.
Yeah, and first I have to say, A&M still has a good chance of getting somehow into the playoffs. But yeah, Reed, it's surprising. There have been a number of games this year you watched him, and even though he's this long, linear-looking kid, when he plays, he looks a little awkward sometimes in his movements because he's so long and twitchy and athletic. But this was one of the more inconsistent games. He didn't seem like he felt comfortable. Texas was able to get pressure. They were able to force him off his spot. He missed some throws, especially in the second half, that I was surprised at. And also, I mean, we talk about Arch had a good game. I mean, it wasn't great, but he was solid. But how about Quinn Trevian, their junior running back? Woo. I mean, last year is 180 plus against A&M. This year, 155. He was a dominant player in the second half. Was really, when you get to the second half, it was really anybody's ball game. And Texas basically just said, we are taking this win away. They dominated their line, really just pushed guys around. They were able to control the line of scrimmage both offensively and defensively. And I thought they made the game a lot easier both for Arch and obviously Quintervian. He made it look easy to me in the second half.
Yeah, that Texas backfield, Wisner, and even C.J. Baxter, redshirt sophomore, who's got tremendous size between the tackles type of runner. The Longhorns, all of a sudden, Russ, I mean, their losses are against high-quality opponents. They have several high-quality wins. I would imagine the Longhorns are going to be in the college football playoff.
You gotta think they have a good chance of getting in, right? I mean, and it maybe is the 12 or the 11,
To
but
clearly defeat the undefeated number 3 ranked team in the nation. I mean, how do you not put them in?
exactly, and especially if they're debating, because obviously there's going to be a lot of A&M people saying, "Hey, we only lost one game," but when they get into that meeting room and you say, "Well, a week ago or 2 weeks ago they beat A&M," it's hard to say we're going to put A&M in. So I mean, I think Texas has a very good argument that hey, the season didn't start so great, but each week they've gotten a little bit better, a little more consistent. They've gotten healthier. So yeah, I think they're going to be in. Imagine how amazing it would be if they squeak in as the 11 or 12, go on to win the national title after all the people killing Arch all season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Well, it's funny because I was on the Jody McDonald show over the weekend, and he was asking me about Arch Manning and could he still declare and even be potentially the number 1 quarterback. And New Orleans Saints are sitting right now in that number 3 overall spot, but should they move up to number 1, I think that throws an interesting variable into the equation. We had another signal caller, kind of one of these tier 2 signal callers in action yesterday with Haynes King and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets hanging tough with Georgia. They kept it close. The Bulldogs came out on top 16-9, but keeping on the theme of quarterbacks, Haynes King, he's a big dual threat, can beat you with his arm, beat you with his legs. We saw a little bit of that yesterday. 19 of 27, 181 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, but he did have 39 rushing yards against the magnificent defense. But how do you kind of project Haynes King draft status here as we get into or inch closer to the draft season?
well, firstly, before I say on him, I got to say, if you're Arch and you see the Saints at 3 and their disastrous season right now, and really the last 10 years, what's been sort of a disaster, do you say, you know what? I'm going to stay another year because if he comes out, they're going to do whatever it is to get him because to have that name in that stadium, they're going to want that. If I'm him, I'm like, no, I'll wait a year and hope one of these other teams gets me because that just to me screams not that he can't succeed there, but I just think it would be a disaster. In terms of King, I look at King and when I watch him, I see bigger kid. The arm strength is there. I don't know if the pure passing skill is there. That to me is the big question when I watch him play. I think there's no doubt athletically he can make plays running with the ball. I think to me he's the guy that's got to go to a place, whether it's Coach Shanahan, Coach McDaniels in New England, the OC, go somewhere where there's a coach that really is good at sort of breaking down a quarterback and rebuilding him to take advantage of his full skill set. Because this kid's got some tools. And I think like a lot of college quarterbacks that come into the NFL with a lot of tools, he needs real breakdown and fundamental work. And it's not to knock Georgia Tech or anything they've done. They've coached him, I think, to where as well as he could be for a college quarterback. I just think he's a raw piece of clay. And I think some team late in the draft is going to throw a dart on this kid because big kids with an arm who can run that have high character, those are guys you want to try to work with. We both worked with one or got to experience one in the CFL who bounced around the NFL for 3 or 4 years because he had those traits, and that's McLeod Bethel Thompson. Yeah. Big kid with a cannon for an arm, tremendously good athlete for a guy his size, not consistent enough, but teams kept trying to figure out, can they unlock the consistency? And I could see King being in that same boat of they keep trying to figure out, can we figure out how to make him a quarterback?
Yeah, very similar to, I would say, Riley Leonard coming out of Notre Dame. Big body, big arm. Well, can make all the throws, but the consistency,
exactly,
I think, the concern there. But when you talk about experience and, he's really taken this Georgia Tech program and made them competitive. So, I think Haynes King gets drafted probably somewhere on day 3 in those mid to late rounds, but he is a developmental project that you're going to have to redshirt for a season or 2, right? And try to have the mental acumen catch up with the physical ability there for Haynes King. All right. One more, actually, two more signal callers in action we're going to discuss from yesterday. I don't think Trinidad Chambliss is going to come out for the draft, but, Lane Kiffin, we could probably spend a whole show on what the future holds for Lane Kiffin. But his quarterback, maybe Trinidad Chambliss, if Lane Kiffin departs, maybe he thinks about dipping his toes into the draft pool. He was shot out of a cannon, came out of nowhere this year, and he threw for 359 yards in that Egg Bowl as Ole Miss won 38-19 over Mississippi State. Completed 23 of 34 passes, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Russ, Trinidad Chambliss, an undersized quarterback who just makes play after play after play.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think when you just see him, you almost want to write him off. He's not a big kid. He's almost he looks a little muscled up. And you know the history of those over-muscled quarterbacks, they don't make it. But I think when you look at what he did, and this is a guy that when he got there this year, I literally was like, I don't even know who this kid is. I hadn't done any work on him. Combine him with, to me, one of the most underrated quarterback coaches in Coach Kiffin. That has been a great matchup. I think Coach Kiffin knows how to coach quarterbacks, knows how to get the most out of them, figures out their strengths, and plays his whole offense around that. This kid's a good football player. Now, does he have enough to be a starter at the NFL level? I don't know. He reminds me a little bit of the kid Taylor Heineke. Athletic, scrappy, tough, smart. There's a little bit of Heineke in this kid. Can he become that guy that sits as your third, bounces around the league, and carves out a 10-year career? I think it's possible. I just don't know if the consistency is there to really be more than that sort of back-ended roster quarterback. I'll tell you one thing, though. You bring him up to Canada, that kid would murder Canada. He would be great on that big field. He's got the arm. He'd be a real intriguing guy to get up there.
No doubt. And one guy we've also mentioned that could be heading north of the border is Jalen Daniels. We've discussed him at length on the show. He was in action yesterday against Utah. The Jayhawks falling to the Utes 31-21. And you know what, Russ? There's an old saying with the scouts. There's something to be said for the final impression when they see you on the field, right? There's a lasting impression, and this was not a good performance. In fact, it was one of his worst. 10 of 27, 187 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions for Jalen Daniels. And we've talked about he's almost like a quarterback trapped inside a running back's body.
Yeah, I mean, he's a kid you want to root for because he plays with passion. You can tell he bleeds Kansas Jayhawk. Like he is a Jayhawk through and through. He's a leader. I just don't think the passing skills are there for him to be a professional quarterback. He misses too many throws that are, as you and I will jokingly say, and I know I say this all the time when I'm watching games with friends, they'll make that 12-yard out throw, and I'll go, oh, that's a handoff, basically. And he misses handoffs. Like he misses throws that are gimmies. You can't do that and be a professional. Ironically, the kid on the other side of the ball, nobody really paid attention to this kid, Dampier, and sort of like the kid at Ole Miss. Dampier's come in, been efficient, a good quality quarterback this whole year for Utah, really done a good job. So, yeah, I mean, Daniels, to me, the scary part is, and you hate to say this, is his biggest issue to me is accuracy. And a lot of these really athletic guys, you like to immediately say, oh, they'd be great on the bigger field in Canada. But if you're not accurate, it's not even worth showing up in Canada because we got 2 downs, not 3.
Yeah, it's tough.
So I'm intrigued by what he might be able to be developed into. But at the same time, you're talking about Lance is the head coach at Kansas. John DeFilippo was there on the staff. Yeah. Those are 2 really good guys at teaching fundamentals, getting quarterbacks to play their best. He is in year 6, and he still has games like this. I'm very concerned if he really has the tools to play professional football.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Flip, good friend of the show, and doing good things over there at Kansas. All right, a couple of skill players I want to discuss, Russ, that were in action yesterday. Arizona State 23-7, or I'm sorry, Arizona 23-7 over Arizona State. Jordan Tyson, talk about one of his worst performances. 2 catches for 22 yards. Now, he's had a productive season. 711 yards on the year, 8 touchdowns, a little bit short of his season a year ago where he had 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. But, we mentioned Ryan Paglia, who's going to be out at that UCLA USC game. He did a write-up on Tyson this past week, and I wasn't aware of all these injuries, and I'm going to rattle them off to you, but it's a big red flag for me because he was potentially the number one wide receiver in the class. But when I take a look at all these injuries, I get a little bit queasy because durability is a major concern. He has missed action every single year, Russ. He missed 4 weeks this year due to a hamstring. He suffered a broken collarbone last year. As you remember, he missed that bowl game, the college football playoffs where Scatterboo ran crazy. They might have pulled off the upset over Texas had Tyson been healthy. And then his freshman year, he had a severe knee injury with an ACL, MCL, and PCL that ended his freshman season prematurely. When you got a guy who can't, like they say, you can't make the club in the tub every single season, missing action, that's a risky proposition to invest a first round pick in.
Oh, it's hugely risky. I mean, I mean, when I was with the Browns, Butch Davis was our head coach, and he used to always say that availability is a skill. Certain guys have it. Certain guys, exactly, yeah. And I'm sure you remember. I mean, when I first got in this business back in '94 at the Rams, my old boss Jack Faulkner used to always sit back, and Jack was like 200 years old, had been in the league with Sid Gilman. And he used to say, if they're hurt in college, they're going to be hurt in the pros. And the old guys used to always have that saying. Well, the crazy part is there's a lot of sayings that the old guys used to say that have been disproven. But I will tell you one thing, that with analytics has not only been proven, but it's been proven to such an extent that teams take guys off the boards now sometimes that haven't even had severe injuries, but they've just had so many little ones. And the data says those guys are never going to make it. There's a lot
Percy Harvin comes to mind, right?
100%.
Always banged up at Florida, always banged up in the pros. When he's healthy, he's an awesome weapon.
And you get a lot of those guys who were hurt in college. People say, you don't have to worry about it. They come in the NFL. They have like a year as a backup. Then they have one extraordinarily great year where they stay healthy. And the rest of their career, they're chasing being healthy, never able to do it again consistently. It's a scary thing for Tyson because I think you and I would agree. If you just put on a clip of his catches, he's without question an elite guy with NFL traits that should be able to play and start and make an impact in the NFL. But man, I am always hesitant with injuries. And I will tell you that people don't know this if they haven't worked in the league or been around it a long time. The NFL Combine wasn't created so that teams could work guys out and get 40-yard dashes. It was created to save teams money so that all the players would be in one spot and you give them all physicals. And that's still the primary, most important part of the Combine is all the medical that you gather on these kids. And I think you and I were actually at the Combine the year that I think it was a tight end out of one of the Ivy League schools came there, was invited. And during the checks, they found he had basically a problem with the blood flow in his brain. And they said, yeah, your career is over. You're not participating. You're going home. Football's over. This is a big thing, medical. So, and I'm not trying to say that we have no idea. I have no idea the medical history in this kid. I don't know in terms of like the severity, what they are. I just know that it's a big deal. I do know that once you tear an ACL, your odds of basically doing it again are about 20 to 25%. So it's a very scary proposition when you take guys with injuries. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that with today's analytics, a guy like Tyson could see a shocking drop. I mean, like I said, I don't know if there's any of his true medical information, but when you have a lot of injuries, teams get very leery.
Yeah, well, that medical report at the Combine is going to go a long ways towards where he lands in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. And, of course, we got the godfather of the draft, Gil Brandt, to thank for helping organize that NFL scouting Combine. And we'll be out there on location in Indianapolis every step of the way, counting you down through the All-Star games, the Combine, the FCS Combine, the Pro Day trails. Nobody prepares you for the 2026 NFL draft like allaccessfootball.com. Check out the Black Friday sale, extended 60% off, biggest sale of the week. So Jordan Tyson, Russ, with a loaded wide receiver class, is going to really depend on the off the field stuff and not on the field for his draft stock. One other guy I want to mention, because had Nebraska actually lived up to expectations this season, Emmett Johnson might be in the Heisman Trophy race. Like, this guy has just been on a tear. 5 straight 100-yard rushing games. Yesterday, 29 carries, 217 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He's got run and catch ability, even lines up in the slot a little bit. Emmett Johnson, really good looking player. Now, Nebraska lost 40-16 to Iowa, but Emmett Johnson is definitely now kind of elevated himself into the conversation amongst the top running back prospects in the nation.
Oh, I think there's no question. I mean, we don't know because he's a junior if he's going to come out, but traditionally, most running backs that are even considered in the first 3 rounds, they usually come out because we all know there's only so many carries in a running back's body. So I'd be surprised if he didn't come out. He's right at that 5'11" number, right about 200, 210 pounds. He's what you want when you look at a running back. There's a lot to like about him. I got to throw one other guy that jumped out at me. Not so much in this game, but this season that played in that game. Not a guy that plays on offense or defense much, but Caden Wetjohn, the returner for Iowa. This kid is a dynamic returner. I saw him earlier in the season. I texted some buddies around the league, and they said they don't know if he'll ever get on the field on offense or defense, but all of them said they would be stunned if he wasn't drafted strictly as a returner, sort of like that little kid out of TCU a few years ago that's making his money for the Chargers, that Darius Davis kid.
Yeah.
Similar type guy, a little bit bigger than him, but he's dynamic. This kid's got a little twitch to him. Last week, he had a punt return for a touchdown. Every time I watch him, you hate to say it because you see Iowa, you see returner, you instantly think Tim Dwight back in the day. This kid's got a little bit of that Timmy Dwight, and I could see this kid having a long career as a returner. I don't know if he'll ever really contribute anywhere else, but there's something to this kid. So I want to mention him because I knew we were talking Iowa, Nebraska. Is interesting game, though. Both teams 200 yards rushing. Both teams 1 turnover. The difference really was Nebraska's quarterback, Lateef, 9 for 24. Couldn't hit water falling out of a boat. Gronowski, not great, but efficient. No mistakes, no interceptions. Does his job. Been a very big help to that team coming down from South Dakota State. And as usual, Iowa wins more games than anybody predicts each year. It's just sort of a guarantee.
Yeah, you were talking about that returner. I had a flashback to Trendon Holiday coming out of LSU back in the 2010 NFL draft, a 6th-round pick. He was strictly a returner at 5'5", 165 pounds. That Trendon Holiday.
Well, I remember I was in the CFL 2 or 3 years ago, and when the kid from TCU that the Chargers took was coming out in the draft, and a team in the CFL had him on their neg list for about a year, and it was the team I was with, and they had put him on. I said, guys, you can take him off, and they were like, no, he's 5'6", he's not going to. I said, guys, I've spoken to 3 NFL teams. All 3 of them have him as a not just draftable returner. They have him as an impact, game-changing returner. I said he's going to get numerous opportunities, even if he gets cut, because you can't find these guys. So finally, I got them to take him off the neg list because guys that are special with the ball in their hands, especially now with the funky kickoff, guys like that can change games because that's basically a punt return now. And those punt returners could really make a big impact on kickoff returns in the NFL.
No doubt about it. He's Russ Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. This is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Today is November 29th, 2025. We're about an hour and a half away from the game, and we're going to get into the game right now. The rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan, as I alluded to, a rivalry that has been around since 1897. You got to love the tradition and the legacy, the lore, everything that goes into this, and let's just get right into it. But before we do, Just a quick reminder, allaccessfootball.com, Black Friday sales, 60% off, includes the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, over 500 in-depth scouting reports, and all of our insider content. Double dose of the Draft Insider this week. Of course, the world-famous All Access Football Report on Wednesdays, and Monday we'll have our Scout Notebook. We're also looking forward to the initial wave of Senior Bowl invites. East-West Shrine Bowl invites already underway. FCS Combine is just a month away, and we'll be full throttle into the draft season and the bowl game season. Really, traditionally the bowl game season was a good way to start, like when, especially the NFL teams that have been eliminated from playoff contention, you get the coaches start getting involved in the evaluation process, right? And they're usually tied up during the season. But once they're out of the playoffs, even some of the coaches start paying attention to these bowl games. Now, unfortunately, Russ, the latest trend is most players do, unfortunately, skip these bowl games nowadays. But a handful of guys still do play.
Oh, yeah, they do. And it's important to play in the bowl games because, and a lot of agents don't want to hear it. They all say it's not that important because you have the film, you're going to be able to test them. But people don't understand on the outside looking in that the bowl game isn't about what you're doing on the field. It's all the little things, the intangibles. How do you interact? How coachable are you? There have been guys that have gone to all-star games, and I remember a few in particular that there were questions about the maturity, how hard they could be coached, because either they'd been in a program that wasn't real consistent with winning or didn't have a great staff in terms of, not that they weren't good coaches, but they didn't interact well as a coaching staff. So it was a weird dynamic. So kids came down there with some questions about how they would handle NFL coaching. And when they do, usually the staffs down at Senior Bowl are told, or staffs they get told, hey, this kid's, we think he may be a guy that cracks under hard coaching. So they coach him hard. And sometimes you really get to see how does he handle it. And some guys go down there and you're like, okay, this is what we wanted to learn. He can handle it. Certain guys step in and it's as if it's just another day in the park. Also, all-star games, small school guys, we all want to see them because they're no longer the big fish in a small pond. Now they're a small fish in a huge pond, and you want to see not only how do they play, but how do they mentally handle it. A great example, I think you and I were there at the East-West Shrine game when Laurent Duvernay-Tardif from Canada got brought down, and the first 3 snaps, I still remember this, in team, guy just whipped him. And everyone was like, oh no, because they were all concerned. And the rest of the week, he didn't allow any pressure. And a lot of that, people that don't watch the CFL may not know this, in Canadian college football, there's a yard between the O-line and D-line. So those first 3 snaps, he was like a fish out of water. That guy was by him before he even reacted. But after that, he really showed his stuff. And he went from a guy that teams were intrigued by to a guaranteed draft pick. Everybody knew he was getting picked. So those all-star games have a ton of value. I understand some guys want to skip them. I think it's a mistake to skip them. I think there is huge value to be gained and very little to be lost unless you're just a kid who is not the type of kid who's going to handle being in a situation well and is not going to work well with others. Otherwise, I think it's only positives that come from going to those all-star games.
Yeah, I remember that East-West Shrine Bowl game. He got his ass handed to him in the first day of practice and then bounced back in a big way. That Dr. Laurent Torve, right? He's a doctor now.
He is. He's a doctor in Montreal, and he played about 10 years in the NFL, won a Super Bowl.
Has that much time actually passed by?
I might be off by a year or two, but yeah, he was because he was a 6th-round pick of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I think he was there for 5 or 6 years, and he signed as a free agent with the Jets for about 2 or 3 years and then was done with football.
Yeah. All right. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella. Let's get into the game. Ohio State at Michigan, 12 o'clock kickoff, Russ. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Ryan Day dropping 4 consecutive games to Michigan. And there are Buckeyes fans who want this game today more than the national championship. But remember, Michigan with that big upset last year, I think Ohio State was favored by like 3 scores, and Michigan just planted the flag. But it did ignite a spark from those Buckeyes because they ran the table. They brought home the 9th national championship in Buckeye school history. And this game means a lot. Before we get into the prospects, just a general overview in terms of some of the storylines and things you're looking forward to today. I think one of the underlining stories is you got 2 freshman signal callers in this one.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the history of the game, if you think back, like John Cooper was a very successful coach when you look at his one-loss record at Ohio State. But I think in a decade or more, he was there more than a decade. I think he won twice against Michigan. And if you talk to people around the program, that's the reason he got pushed out, was that he couldn't beat and win against Michigan. So it matters. I mean, this is the game. Like there are times where one of the schools, now it's not been recently where they haven't been winning and in the top 20, but there have been times in the past 20, 30 years where the program was having a bad year or two. They're around 500, and you knew if you just won this game, nobody was getting fired. And so this game has enormous value to the programs. It's obviously going to get unbelievable ratings on TV, and it's a great opportunity, in my opinion. You get to see some of these cats. Everybody's going to be looking at the elite, the Jeremiah Smith, the Caleb Down. We all know those guys. But to me, I love looking at the guys that are fringe draft guys. Which one's going to step up and, like you said, plant the flag and say, I'm not an undraftable guy. I need to be drafted because I just stepped up in the biggest game of my career and I threw it down and had a great game. To me, that's what I love about these games. Now, I will say Michigan, 2 of their good players, senior prospects, Bredesen and the kid Ernest Hausman, if I'm saying his last name correctly. Both these kids, no one knows if they're going to play or not. Yeah. They've been battling injuries. They're going to basically be a game-time decision.
The safety, Rod Moore, and the running back, Justice Haynes, also out for Michigan as well.
Yeah, and Moore's really a shame. I mean, this kid had the ACL in 24. Everybody thought he was going to be back for the beginning of the season. He had a little flare-up, and he's going to miss the whole year. So really a shame for him. But the good thing is next year he'll be back, hopefully, at full speed, be able to put his stuff on display and take a red shirt this year. But I'm excited. This is going to be a great game. It is rare, like you said, to have 2 freshman quarterbacks dueling it out. Not the same in terms of neither Underwood. I don't think there was a bigger name in recruiting coming to Michigan. Mm-hmm. So definitely different in terms of one was elite prospect and one was a good recruit, but no one was talking about him like he was Underwood. And here they are leading 2 teams into a massive game today.
Yeah, and Julian saying right in contention for the Heisman Trophy as well.
Yep.
All right, let's get our scuba gear on and dive into these prospects. They're locked and loaded. And today's Draft Insider, we actually ranked the top 25 prospects in this game. It's going to be littered with Sunday players. And we'll start off with the Ohio State Buckeyes, as you alluded to, Russ. First-round draft picks all over the field. Let me know where you want to begin.
Well, firstly, it's really impressive when you think about the fact that Ohio State's going to have potentially Carnell Tate, receiver, first round, potentially Averill Reese, linebacker, first round, Caleb Downs, not just potentially, he's going in the first round, potentially Kenyatta Jackson if he comes out early. He's looked at as a day 2, but he could squeak in to the first round, and so could the Igbinosun, the corner, because 6'2" corners that can run, they always go higher than you think.
And the other linebacker, too, Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles, 100%. That kid could run like the wind. So we have all these guys we're talking about, and everybody in the NFL just wants to talk about Jeremiah Smith. It reminds me a little bit of Ohio State again, back 20 years ago, when they had this right tackle named Corey Stringer, who was a senior. And everybody was excited at that. Rest in peace, no doubt. But everybody was excited entering his senior year. And then within 1 week of his senior year, all they were talking about was the true freshman at left tackle, Orlando Pace. And Stringer was like, yeah, he's okay. Yeah. Stringer went 16th in the draft, and people weren't even talking about him because Orlando Pace, as a true freshman, looked like the future Hall of Famer he ended up becoming. And that's what I think of when I look at Jeremiah Smith is he's literally all people have been talking about for 2 years now at Ohio State. And they are loaded with guys. Carnell Tate's a really good receiver. Big, 6'2" plus, 195 pounds. I don't think he's as dynamic as Smith, but he might be a little bit more consistent game in and game out, does everything the right way, a really good football player. CJ Donaldson, I don't think he's a stud running back. I think he's a good one. I don't think there's a lot of twitch there. To me, he's a guy that's probably going to go undrafted, maybe a late round consideration.
Yeah.
I like their tight end, the Kamarasic or Kasmarek, or however you want to pronounce it. I'm not an expert on that. But this is a kid that's big, long, powerful. He does a lot of things well. I just don't think he's a twitchy special guy. I think he's probably going to be an undrafted guy, has a chance of being a late rounder. And defensively, they're just loaded. I mean, we talked to you mentioned Sonny Styles. You have Styles and Reese, two linebackers that are going to be probably going somewhere between 20 and 50. These are both high-end guys, a little bit different in that Reese is a little bit smaller at 6'3" and 230, and Sonny's in the 6'4.5", 235, 240. Sonny can run. This kid legitimately is in that 4.5, 4.55 range. I think he's going to test so well that somebody's going to have to take him in the first round. I mentioned Kenyatta Jackson. He's a long 6'6", 250 guy as a junior. Got a chance to be a high pick. Caden Curry, the other defensive end, not a special guy, but I think he's going to probably be in that late round PFA area. And all these players we've talked about, all these really good ones. And then there's Caleb Downs. I mean, Caleb Downs is definitely in that discussion as the best safety to come out in the last 5 to 10 years. This kid can play up along the line of scrimmage, be physical, make tackles. And this kid can play deep. He can help. He can be a guy that can cover one-on-one. I'm not saying I'm going to put him on an elite receiver in man-to-man, but he can cover guys in short area coverage in man-to-man. He can pick up tight ends. He can help with over-the-top coverage. I mean, this guy is everything you want as a safety. I really think this kid's going to make a quick impact in the NFL, even though safety is one of the harder positions to jump in today's NFL. They're loaded. It's going to be very interesting to see all these defensive players. How does Michigan handle them?
Yeah, I mean, they've got first-round studs at every level of the defense, and I'll just follow up on some of the guys you mentioned because I think Reese, when it's all said and done, is going to be in contention for that number 1 overall pick, especially when you got the Titans and Giants right now locked in at number 1 and number 2. They both have quarterbacks. They're going to be looking maybe at a defensive quarterback and Reese who can fly around the field. I'm with you on Caleb Downs, pound for pound. He might be the best overall prospect in the nation. And then Sonny Styles, I've actually heard him test in the sub 4.4 range in the 40-yard
Wow,
dash.
that's crazy.
I mean, that's faster than most linebackers at 6'3" and 6'8" inches, 235 pounds. And Caden McDonald has really come on in the trenches there. So a lot of potential first-round picks. But I will say this, like Carnell Tate, I'm not sure he's a better deep ball receiver than Jeremiah Smith. I mean, the way this guy tracks the ball and makes deep downfield plays, like he's a phenomenal talent. And I don't think there's a big drop-off. I have Carnell Tate as my number 1 rated wide receiver. You know, Max Clare, the tight end. There's 2 good tight ends in this game. Clare for Ohio State. Marlon Klein for Michigan is another guy who runs like the wind. You mentioned Igbensom, the cornerback who had a brother at Rutgers up the road. The other corner's pretty good too, Jermaine Matthews, and he came on strong early on in the season, faded a little bit in the second half, shade under 6 feet, but very quick. You mentioned Curry. You got Kenyatta Jackson. Even Carson Hinsman, the center, is on the NFL draft radar there for Ohio State. So, again, I'm just reading off of our list, the top 25 prospects in this matchup, and Ohio State definitely dominates the top of the board, right?
Yeah.
And any other players there for the Buckeyes you want to hit on there?
Well, you know, I just want to mention that quarterback, Igbensom. He's a kid I saw last year. He's a little bit grabby. That's the thing that bothers you a little bit. He has a tendency to stop his feet and grab. But when I watched him last year, and I'm looking at this kid, his movement skills are really good for a tall corner. He's got loose hips. He can flip and change. He's got long arms, ball skills. I think this is a kid who, even if he doesn't get drafted as highly as I think he should, I think once he gets to the pros, I think he's going to really just take off. And it's not knocking Ohio State. It's just, we both know in college you get 20 hours. That's the total you can be in the building. This is a kid that, to me, needs that extra 2-3 hours a week being grinded by a position coach that he can't get in college because of the hour restriction. I think he's going to really flourish at the next level. They're going to put those kitchen gloves on his hands when he's in practice so he can't grab nobody. And he's going to learn how to box and use his hands without grabbing. And I think he will get better and better.
No, I think he's a plug-and-play talent. It's going to be a smooth transition for him. And one other guy I'll mention who could declare is Austin Sierveld, the redshirt sophomore offensive tackle who could dip his toes into the draft pool. So there's a look at the Ohio State Buckeye prospects. Again, allaccessfootball.com. We've got about 40 prospects listed and a dozen scouting reports amongst these two teams that you can digest and consume. We're about an hour away from kickoff, Russell. Let's turn our attention and flip the page over to those Michigan Wolverines, and maybe not as loaded up near the top of the draft, but Michigan knows how to recruit. There's a lot of players, a lot of talent, and we mentioned some of these guys will be missing in action today, but let's take a look and shine the spotlight on the Michigan top prospects.
Well, firstly, you mentioned not a lot at the top. And I think if you look at what they have so many guys that are going to be drafted or priority free agents, even if they're not high picks. That's part of the reason a guy like Underwood has been able to come in and slowly get better and better throughout the season. That the team keeps winning because they're strong with veterans throughout. I mean, you just look offensively. I mean, you have two offensive linemen that people are really looking at. Gio El Hadid and Greg Crippen. Hadid is the center, Crippen's the guard. Virtually the same size, 6'3", about 315, 320 for both of them. Neither one of these is guys that pick guys up and throw them down the street, but they're fundamentally sound. They stay over their feet. They know exactly where to be. They have great communication skills. These are the types of guys that get into NFL camps either as late round picks, priority free agents, and because of the coaching at Michigan, because of their smarts, their competitiveness, their intangibles, they end up sticking around. And a lot of guys like them end up playing a lot in the NFL. Max Bredesen, the guy we mentioned that's injured, old school fullback, H-back type. He will blow someone's head off if he gets a chance as a lead blocker. More teams are starting to go back a little bit to having that guy to knock guys' heads off. I think he's going to play in the league. Justice Haynes doesn't get a lot of sort of great publicity out there. Good running back. Not a super explosive guy that's just going to run away from people, but he's got short area quickness. He's got a little bit of twitch through the hole. I like him as a day 3 guy. Two interesting guys sort of on the offense that are sort of not really talked about much. The Donovan McCulley kid, the receiver, huge kid, over 6'4", over 200 pounds. Better athlete than I think he gets credit for because he's so long. You don't really see that speed, but he can run. I think he's going to get a chance as a priority free agent. And the other kid to me on offense that's so unique is the Marlon Klein kid, the tight end. I mean, you talk about a kid, he's from Germany, kid's over 6'5", almost 250. There have been reports that he runs in the 4.5 range.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid's, I have a feeling that because of his athletic traits, even though teams are talking about him now as a late round PFA, I could see this kid going to an all-star game, going to the combine and flying up draft boards. And I'm not saying he's going to be a first rounder, but I could see someone in that 3rd or 4th round saying, this is a guy we really believe could be something. He reminds me actually of the kid from Ohio State that bounced around the league for a while, just washed out a year or two ago, big, tall tight end, never really found a home. This kid looks like a more athletic version of him. Of course, I can't remember his name. This kid's got something to him. Defensively, they're just loaded when you look at that defense. Derek Moore, really good pass rusher, guy that's probably going to push in the 2nd, maybe squeak into the 1st. Jay Schwan Barnum on the other side, another defensive end. Not as big, not as thick, not as powerful, but a good football player. I think he's in that 3rd round area. Ray Benny, the defensive tackle, not a guy that gets a lot of publicity. All he does is do his job. He stays on his feet. He controls his man. Powerful kid, even though it's crazy to say this, but he's only 300 pounds. But he controls the blocker. He's got good strength. I think he's a late round consideration. The Hossman kid, we talked about, he may not play. Sort of an undersized guy, 6'1", about 220. He can run. He's a really good coverage linebacker for them. I think he's got a chance if he gets healthy, whether it's today or just going through the spring to where he can work out. Got a chance of being a day 3 guy. I will throw a guy that's probably on nobody's list, but I think he's going to get a chance as the Jimmy Rolder kid. He's their other linebacker, 6'2", 240, 3-year all-conference academic guy, played in 40-plus games there. He's one of their leading tacklers this year. He just makes plays. He's not special athletically. He's just all over the place. Zeke Berry is a corner, just under 6 feet, good length, good athlete. NFL people have told me they think he's a fringe guy, maybe a PFA, maybe a late rounder. And all this, and then their one elite guy that's probably going to be a first-round pick is junior Jair Hill. I mean, NFL teams like this kid, long kid, like we always talk about. If you're over 6 feet, you can run. NFL teams get excited. This kid's got something to him. I'd like to see a little bit more on his frame. He looks a little skinny when you watch, but he can run. He can transition. He can adjust to guys. He's got good hips. He's got good agility. I think this is a kid who, firstly, could be a big challenge for him today. These are 2 big-time receivers. It's going to be a great matchup. Great chance for him to prove, and like you said, stamp that flag. He could show today, hey, I am a top 15 pick. He goes out there and just has a great game.
No doubt, especially if he comes up with a big interception, because I'd like to see him make some more plays. I think that's the one thing missing. But yeah, you talk about 6'1", 185 pounds, should test really well, has stepped in and been that cornerback one for Michigan. I will say I agree. Derek Moore, the top-rated prospect for the Wolverines. I'm a little bit higher on Justice Haynes because I think back to Blake Corum, and I actually have Haynes rated a little bit higher, and I think Corum went in the 3rd or 4th round. But very compact frame, gains those tough yards between the tackles. Now, obviously, he's nursing the injury, so we'll see what comes out of the medical report. But I think this is a guy, I don't know, if he's not a starting running back, he's definitely going to play a huge role in a committee type of situation. And I'm looking forward to what Marlon Klein runs at the NFL Scouting Combine.
Me too. That's a really interesting one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, we mentioned Rod Moore is also on the mend. One guy we have not mentioned that we should. I got 3 guys. TJ Guy is like an off the bench situational pass rusher. He had a bunch of sacks last year, not so much this year. But you talk about power 4 pedigree, a little bit of starting experience, good size, sack production. TJ Guy might be one of these guys you bring into a training camp and get a look. And then TJ Metcalf.
I'm just going to interrupt you before you get to the next 2 guys, because you and I know, having worked in the CFL, what can't you find in the CFL? That's pass rushers. And why? Because if they've ever shown the ability to rush the passer and their heart is still beating, NFL teams keep bringing him in. So you mentioned a perfect guy. He's probably not a guy that NFL teams think is going to make it, but they see a little bit of something that he knows how to get to the quarterback. Literally, teams will throw their parents overboard to try to find a guy who can rush the passer because you can't find these guys.
It's tough. It's very difficult.
So it's a great point you make of bringing this guy up, because I'd seen him during the past 2 years, and he would flash. You'd be like, "Ooh, who is this kid?"
Yeah.
And then he's not playing.
Yeah.
For like the next year, you're like, "What happened?" But yeah, you make a great point, because anybody who can get to the quarterback consistently in a P4 school, they got to get a look, because you can't find, there just aren't enough humans on the planet who can get to the quarterback.
No, it's very true. TJ Guy, one name that you need to know, as is TJ Metcalf, the other safety who's kind of stepped in, filled the void there by Rod Moore, steps up in the box, 6'1", 200 pounds. Again, probably an undrafted free agent. And then the last guy I want to mention, who has a very strong chance of being drafted. In fact, he's our number 1 rated kicker, Dominic Zapata. You brought him up in the past. Dominic Zapata, Russ. Big boot kicker. And listen, at the end of the day, this game very well could come down and hinge on the leg of Dominic Zapata.
There's no doubt. And you know me, I'm a huge kicker punter guy. I spend tons of time on them. The only reason I generally don't like to draft kickers is because most kickers become their best kicker on their 3rd or 4th team. And I always remember the lesson I learned from a Jersey guy, or a Philly guy, but Jersey. I think I may have told you the story about Sean Landetta. He was at the Rams with me, the old punter for the Giants. And punters and kickers virtually have nothing to do all day. So Sean would come sit and watch film with me, or harass me, whatever you want to call it, while I was doing my work. And Sean always talked about one thing, which is punters and kickers don't make it in the NFL until they can come to grips with and understand that every single kick is your career. He said once they get past that, they can make it. And that's why he said, I never worry about a rookie. He goes, because you can get in their head. So this is a kid that no doubt has NFL tools to kick. How long it's going to take him to get over the every single kick is my career thing, don't know. And that's why I don't like drafting kickers. But I understand that certain people are going to go out. But you look at the Jake Moody a year ago. Look at the kid the Rams just cut yesterday, who they took last year. Hardy, I think was his name. They took in the 6th round last year. Most kickers don't make it until their second or third team because they've got to build up the mental toughness.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know quite a few kickers that have been drafted high have not worked out too.
Yep.
So
the most famous one is John Lee. John Lee, 2nd round pick by the Arizona Cardinals, complete disaster. And then you get guys like John Carney, undrafted out of Notre Dame, cut 7 or 6 times before he ends up with the Chargers and ends up kicking in the NFL for over a decade. So sometimes it's just got to get over that mental hurdle.
Yeah,
just go out there and swing that leg.
I remember Young Ho Koo we had down at the College Gridiron Showcase, and it actually took him, I think, 6 NFL seasons before he got activated to the NFL 53-man roster. And then I think his first season he made the Pro Bowl or All-Pro, and hence he's had a little bit of struggles in between. But you talk about the grind, the journey. This guy, even the kickers love the game, man. It took him 6 seasons to even get elevated to the active roster. But you're absolutely right. Borregales, I think, was drafted one year. There's another kid out of Florida State that didn't work out. And
I mean, not everybody can be like me and go find Billy Cundiff at Drake. And he wins the starting job as a rookie and is a 12-year NFL vet at a Drake, undrafted. So
what round did Sebastian Janikowski go in?
He was first. Seabass was first round pick by Al Davis, one of the greats of all time. Oh yeah, well, think about it. First rounder,
the original dumb drunk kicker.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, he wasn't even the first specialist they took in the first round. They took Ray Guy 20 years before that in the first round, and he turned out okay.
Yeah, not bad.
Al Davis knew what he was doing. It may have been a little bit different, but he knew what he was doing.
I think that's a good way to end the Ohio State Michigan prospect primer. I mean, what more can you ask for? In-depth kicking analysis.
Yeah, we're breaking it down, topping it up. Kicking analysis for the second game today.
Yeah, well, we got to. Yeah, I know you've been dying to get this off of your chest. It's rivalry week. We focus on Ohio State.
Is going to beat USC tonight.
UCLA and USC. Russ, you're very high on the Bruins today, and I'll tell you what. I don't count them out, even though they're about 30-point underdogs. Nico hasn't been playing though. I think that's been kind of
it's not helped us. But you know what? You can throw out the records in these games.
Yeah,
it's a battle of Los Angeles. We're going to win this one. Get this thing on track for next season.
I would anticipate the money line looks very appetizing there. All right, Russ. Well, hey, we got another hour of power in the books. We recapped the Friday night action, rivalry week. The big game is starting in about an hour or so. Of course, we'll be back next week on December to ring in almost the new year, but also we'll have Senior Bowl invites we can dissect. We'll have I think we should know who's in the college football playoff as well, right?
Yeah.
And then in 2 weeks, the bowl game season kicks off. It'll be full throttle, 145 days away to the 2026 NFL draft destination, Pittsburgh. Unbelievable. Anything else for the people before we wrap it up?
No, just really excited. I'm going to watch college football and Leeds United all day today. So that's about, and put up the Christmas tree.
Yeah, well, you're snowed in anyway. There's nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide.
I think I got 2 inches outside already. It's going to be about 7 or 8 before it's over.
All right, Russ. Well, listen, man, we appreciate the time. We're going to let you boogie. And before I go, I'm going to do my regular promo. So, hey, appreciate it. We'll catch you next week. Enjoy the football action. And thank you so much for your insight and analysis.
All right, my friend. It was great being on as always. And have a great, enjoy your Saturday watching college ball, brother.
Oh, yeah, I will do. That's Russ Lande, former UCLA, St. Louis Rams, Cleveland Browns, XFL, CFL, NFL scout, fountain of information, the knowledge, the analysis, the breakdowns. We do it every week, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, live, All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Of course, we have the double dose of the Draft Insider over on the website. We rank the top 25 prospects for that Ohio State-Michigan game. We also have the NFL Draft Watch team reports. I think there's about 40 prospects and a dozen scouting reports just on Ohio State and Michigan. Yesterday, we posted the Draft Insider with a look at all the teams in action on the Friday docket. Wednesday was the world-famous All Access Football Report. Lots of NFL draft buzz that you can find in there. And, of course, every Monday we do the Scout Notebook. I mentioned Ryan Paglia for the NFL Draft Bible on location at that USC UCLA game, and we'll have a write-up on that for the Monday report. Of course, we are counting you down to the 2026 NFL Draft. Like I said, 145 days away, and we have our biggest sale of the year, limited time only. Take advantage of it today. 60% off the All Access Football Annual Pass. I mean, it's the best bargain around. You get the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, over 500 in-depth scouting reports. We've got insider content on the website that you'll gain access to, including our 2027 NFL Draft Watch. We've got over 1,000 prospects on the NFL Draft HQ tab. If you go on the webpage and check the menu tab and click that HQ, you'll have over 1,000 prospects to consume, verified measurements, projections, background reports, all the intel we've gathered from our campus visits. I mean, nobody's breaking it down like NFL Draft Bible and All Access Football. And that's a money back guaranteed. If you're not happy, we'll refund you, because I promise you this, in my 24 years of covering the NFL Draft, I haven't found a platform or a draft guide that goes harder and more in depth. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just trying to explain to you the value here, because we're not on mainstream media. We're not respected by the masses, but we are respected by the NFL, and we are respected by the industry, because all 32 NFL teams subscribe to All Access Football. We've got 50,000 subscribers from 75 countries around the football universe. So don't hesitate. Become a disciple today. Sign up. Show some love. We appreciate the support. And listen, it's not easy out here doing this independent media thing. We don't have the multi-million, multi-billion-dollar budgets behind us. It's me and Russ talking shop every Saturday, but that's what you call real football talk. And that's what we do every Saturday. So I want to thank everybody. I want to also wish everyone a belated happy Thanksgiving and a happy Thanksgiving weekend of football festivities. Hopefully you got a chance to spend some time with some loved ones, family and friends, and good times, good food, good drink. And today we got a lot of good football. So we'll come back next Saturday right here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We'll continue to preview the top prospects in the land each and every Saturday, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft. And hey, we got about 210 days down and 145 days to go. Nobody in the world is more excited than yours truly. For Russ Lande, I was Ric Serritella. We'll be back at it again next week. And while you're here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Spread the word, and we'll see you next time, everybody.